Hi, this is S. Leo Chiang, the director of A Village Called Versailles, and you're watching Channel APA.
After Katrina, everything that you own is simply destroyed. What do you do when the walls are gone? You still must call something home.
For the Vietnamese community, we were always quiet. We were never on the map. And then came Katrina, because this community was threatened, then we stepped forth.
It seems so ironic that we would take a community like the Vietnamese community, and of all the people to dump on, both literally and figuratively, we choose this.
We have to fight because this is our land. We are connected to this land. New Orleans is home.
My documentary, A Village Called Versailles, is about the recovery and the transformation of the Vietnamese American community after Katrina in New Orleans. We focus on their sort of coming to power. They're finally, after years of being marginalized, to decide to finally speak up and participate in the American political process. When I found out about the story of the community, I was just really compelled by it. I feel like there are a lot of stories out there about Asian Americans, especially immigrant stories that focuses on maybe the struggle that folks have with assimilation, maybe crime and poverty, but not really anything that I know of that focuses on political empowerment and sort of taking claim of the unique brand of American identity that this community has. And for me, as an immigrant, I was also really moved by this whole idea of, finding a place where you belong and a connection to the land. So when I heard about the story, I felt like, this is a documentary film that I should pursue. Well, I actually found out about this particular community after a lot of the events in the film had already occurred. So what I was able to do, I was able to interview a lot of quite a few of the key people who was involved in the story. And with all these really compelling interview bids, I set out to look for visual images that's appropriate to tell a story with. And a lot of our work turned out to be just, almost scavenger hunting. All this, specific events that occurred during that first year after Katrina in New Orleans. We call up, anybody from like CNN, NBC, all the way to the local filmmakers. Everybody was shooting something during that first year after Katrina. We talked to Father Vien at the Mary Queen of Vietnam Church to try and find home video from community members, who happened to be there during the Katrina time. We have video from Entergy, which is the local, utility company. We have video from the government agencies, from EPA. I mean, we have just everything and anything, and it was, it turned out to be, it turned out to be almost like a group effort. It's a collage of images that came from all different sources. But I think that we were able to integrate it so it became one coherent story. We didn't know, well, I didn't know that I wasn't following along until I had gone into it for almost, 6 months, 8 months, a year, because we were still trying to capture whatever the major events that was happening. Really, that's the decision to to tell this kind of an epic story of past and present and future was decided really much later in the production process. So I was still down there, you know, if there was a really interesting event, I still flew myself down there to capture it. So no, I mean, I don't think it's any easier, and especially the post-production process was, you know, was quite challenging, just because, I mean, I think part of our point to make this film was that there was so little coverage about Asian Americans during the Katrina disaster coverage on national TV, that we wanted this to sort of complement that. But at the same time, which also means that we weren't able to find footage of the Vietnamese community during Katrina, you know, so we really had to work extra hard to be able to find the images of the community. And we just had a lot of help from all sort of different folks, you know, from the couple of the nonprofit organizations in the community, the MQVN Community Development Corporation, and also the youth corporation, youth organization in the community called VELA, Vietnamese American Young Leaders Association. I could not be happier about the way the audience has reacted to the film. Folks has really just, it had really resonated with the majority of the people that I've spoken to. I think that people really were moved by the story. I mean, for me, it's an incredibly moving story. But at the same time, there is a lot of interesting issues that was discussed, and then information that a lot of people are sort of learning for the first time. So, yeah, people have been really, really positive about the film. I'm actually doing a follow-up project to this film. Center for Asian American Media, which is one of our primary funders from the PBS side, is asking me to do a follow-up project about Representative Joseph Gao, who is the Vietnamese American congressman that was elected out of Versailles community a couple of years after Katrina. You know, in many ways, he kind of represents the fruit of all the hard work that community had been doing to really become more engaged and more visible out, you know, in the open. And, you know, just through a combination of events, he was able to become the first Vietnamese American congressman. But he's also in this really, you know, sort of interesting, you know, scenario where he's a Republican Vietnamese American representing a majority Democratic African American district. So, you know, he's constantly facing with really tough decisions, and we're just going to follow him through his re-election campaign in November. And not a whole lot of people are giving him a chance to get re-elected, but at the same time, nobody really thought he would win the first time around either. So we'll find out what happens. You know, everybody thought that the first Vietnamese American congressperson, you know, member of Congress, will come out of Orange County or San Jose or Houston, you know, one of the big Vietnamese population centers. But I mean, you know, who knows? I think it's definitely a big source of pride for the Vietnamese Americans in the South, in New Orleans, along the Gulf Coast, that they were the first one to sort of break that bamboo ceiling, I think some people call it, in terms of having a national, you know, elected official. And the ironic thing is, of course, before Joseph Gao, nobody ever even ran for any public office in the state of Louisiana who was Vietnamese American. So he was, you know, he ran twice. First time he finished 5th out of 6 at a state representative race, and second time around, just, you know, he won as a U.S. congressman, and it's quite an impressive achievement. You can find out more about the film on our website, avillagecalledversailles.com. We're going to have our PBS national broadcast on Independent Lens, May 25th. So please check your local TV calendar. It should be on about 10 p.m., 11 p.m. at night.